congrats on the seminar today. Congrats to all of the organization once more time. Just to start with a quick presentation, my name is Katerina Ronga, I'm from Deloitte, Greece. I'm responsible for the sustainability, the sustainability pillar. And actually, before the very, very interesting discussion that we will have with the rest of our colleagues and speakers here, let's have a quick presentation on where to focus and before starting the discussion. So, what are the driving forces to change with regards to sustainability, and how actually this affects us and generally the shipping industry as well? Just to note that a lot of stakeholders are around the game who are setting the baseline with regards to what is happening. So you will have a lot of actual requests from regulators that they define the way that the industry is coming and what they actually should comply with. You will have a lot of governmental and actual differentiated policies per part of the European part of or around the globe that you are actually operating. So this will affect how they see you and what they will actually request. And of course, there are a lot of setters with regards to the framework that are defined with regards to sustainability. And finally, a lot of competitors who are actually trying to go further the game and actually become more mature with regards to this sector and with regards to the sustainability journey. The key point for the discussion later on with Ezekiel as well is to keep from here that there is no one-to-one relationship, is one-to-many, and there is no one baseline set, but a lot of stakeholders requesting different parts in order to ensure that actually compliance for them is achieved. And what compliance means, we will see it later on. Second part, a lot of buzzwords with regards to sustainability and ESG. It came with ESG, environment, social and governance, though the buzzword still remains and becomes even more fake and even more vague when we hear about a lot of sustainability standards, frameworks, regulations. A key point to start with and to understand and take it also for the discussion later on is that we have a major target, which is the sustainability objectives in order to ensure that climate change is managed, though this downscales and it actually decomposes in a lot of sustainability frameworks that are required to implement and are required from the European Union. And of course, on different geographies, each actual geography defines the way that they would like to see these frameworks in application. And the second and very, very important part is that these frameworks are coming to be linked with the financial part and financial statements that actually will be the future for a lot of companies in order to ensure that the non-financial information which has to do with the sustainability part is linked actually with the financial statement information which are actually included in your 10F or 20F or generating the financial statements of the company. And we are going to talk about CSRD later on as well, so you will see how these are linked, coming from an objective to a framework and then to a more detailed interrelated financial, let's say, framework to link with the financial statements. So despite of the fact that there are a lot of buzz here with regards to the IFRS, ESRS or TCFD, just keep not the abbreviation, but what is behind this is an effort of all the organizations to combine and prepare for a holistic approach to ensure that all these frameworks come with a specific umbrella in order to ensure that this will be more feasible for the shipping industry or generally for the industry, for all the industries to implement. A lot of benefits. We will define the benefits later on, of course, during the discussion as well. But we have heard a lot of the costs, we have heard a lot on the CO2 emissions and what is coming with regards to the new fuels, and of course with the penalties that are coming. Though what we should keep in this journey is that these, let's say, risks come with a lot of opportunities. And this, for example, on the environmental pillar, comes with new ideas, with innovative solutions that we can create, and of course is possible to be funded as well. And generally the shipping sector should actually strive to identify areas that could be linked and could be actually financed by the RRF, the restructuring fund. There is an opportunity also to ensure collaboration between different parties. As sustainability, the main point of sustainability is not a competition, is a way, is a new culture, is a way to actually create new power, create new ways of challenges, as of course synergies, in order to ensure even more and new innovative solutions. Even, for example, the fuels we have discussed in the beginning could be, let's say, a new effort for all the companies in the industry to just cooperate and create something new, like a new revenue stream, a new business model that will create something new for the next day. And the most important pillar is also the governmental, the governance part, which is actually refers to the way of how we apply all this, how are our processes, and of course what are the controls behind the way that we operate with regards to these processes. A very, very critical part on this is that if someone complies with the ESG, it actually provides a chance and the best way to actually comply with the SEC regulations, and of course regulations that have to do with hardcore governance, let's say, requirements like anti-fraud, risk management, strategy, and general with regards to processes that are in place and would like actually to ensure internal control effectiveness. So, the basic part, to understand where we stand from with regards to maturity. In the sustainability pillar, there are specific areas to consider with regards to the maturity level. The first pillar is the ESG strategy. Does our company has an ESG strategy in place? The second pillar is the governance part. Do we have the appropriate procedures in place in order to ensure that we can manage and ensure that the next day on the sustainability journey we are ready? The third part, the maturity assessment. The key part here is that the sustainability actually landscape changes from what the impact is to the environment and how the company affects the environment to a new quantified approach on how, and in financial benefits, let's say, and financial impact, how it affects the environment and how the society actually affects and has impact on the general financial statements with regards to the quantification of this risk as well. Fourth part is if there is a clear strategic objective with regards to the goals and KPIs, and there we will come with certain, let's say, frameworks that require specific examples and KPIs to be settled and to be in compliance with. And the second part in the maturity model to understand where we stand from for sustainability perspective is the ESG report. So, in general, just to provide some key points where the industry stands for and what we can see not only in Greece and in Cyprus but in general in the global, let's say, framework, is that the shipping industry has started making a lot of, let's say, effort to prepare sustainability reports that follow financial criteria. Until now, the financial frameworks were actually the SASB framework, so the most of the companies in the shipping sector have a sustainability report in place, which is in compliance with the SASB framework. Though, due to the fact that a lot of changes is coming and a lot of changes are coming to the sustainability framework landscape, this means that a lot of maturity is needed with regards to implementing new frameworks like the CSRD, who are actually a more holistic approach frameworks, and they are also providing the opportunity to compare also not only within the industry, but with other industries as well. Second part that is noted is that a lot of effort has been made by the ship owners to identify new ways of, as we have seen in the beginning, to identify alternative fuels and to actually provide budget and use this budget in order to prepare for new innovative solutions. So this is very, very important for the industry, that it shows the way for a new and a better, let's say, sustainability journey. And of course, it's very, very important due to the fact that it affects the whole ecosystem. Ports, customers, transportation, let's say, transportation pillars. And of course, this means that this will create a more and a more, even more mature actual environment with regards to sustainability. Areas to consider in the maturity level of the sector are the fact that we actually see that not yet a sustainability clear model with regards to having sustainability implemented and integrated with the sustainability strategy is not yet, let's say, has not yet been noted. We have identified that a lot of all the actions that are happening around are actually part, of an effort to respond to and be more responsive actually to the new requirements that are coming. So some efforts will be needed in the next years to ensure that we actually have full sustainability maturity in all the periods that we have mentioned previously. Governance, strategy, KPIs, and of course the way to integrate it with financial statements. Some key points of the sector as well are that a lot of efforts have been made with regards to the sustainability report to be linked with rating agencies as well, in order to ensure that investors actually and funds have a more stable environment and have also a toolkit and a baseline that verifies all these sustainability efforts that have been made until now. This is very, very important due to the fact that all this information is publicly available, and this also provides a way of comparison as well. And of course, a new source of funding for the next day. And to finalize and start the discussion as well, just to note that there are a lot of key areas to consider, and not only the EU ETS that we have seen in the beginning, and of course the IMO requirements. A lot of are coming. We have the national climate law, which is a European law, which means that we have to actually calculate the scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions of our companies. One more important legal, let's say, framework is the CSRD, which is coming. The EU taxonomy, which is actually indicates what of our activities and which of our activities are considered green, and how these activities can be actually be incentivized and ensure that we can also have funding with regards to this. And of course, in the future, we will see a lot of changes coming with regards to this framework to ensure that the companies and of course the shipping owners ensure compliance with this. Challenges for the sector are here: how and with which methodology I ensure that I should be compliant with the CSRD regulation. This is the one. And the second part is, if I am actually a company which is actually has an operation in the European Union, or it doesn't have an operation in the European Union, how this affects me, and what actions and roadmap I need actually to implement in order to ensure that my journey is sustainable for the next day. So I will pass the floor to Ezekiel, and thank you so much. Happy to respond to any questions that may have in there.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back from a nice lunch. I'll jump right into it. Katerina, thank you very much. Great presentation. When I got asked to do this panel, I was excited just because I get to ask questions to 4 segments of our industry. So let me introduce that team. We've got Mr. Hugues, Mr. Calmet Hugues, from Senior Vice President, Head of D&B Athens, Representative Office. We have Mr. Thanasis Antonakis, Deputy CFO and Chief Compliance Officer of Safe Bulkers Inc. And we have Mr. Jeff Wakker, COO of Viterra Charting. And of course, you all just were introduced to Katerina. With that, we'll jump right into the questions. My structure for this panel today is really to ask a series of questions across the panel because, like I just said, we have the opportunity to have 4 different segments of our industry here at the table with us. So my first one is really on necessity, and I think I'll start from the root. Mr. Calmet, I'll start with you if you don't mind. And this is the question I'm going to ask is, what are the key necessities for ESG and ESG reporting in the shipping industry, specifically in your area, which is finance?
Thank you, Ezekiel. I would say as a very large corporate, a bank, we have been under demand from all sorts of stakeholders for many, many years to report on the ESG, and that comes from our shareholders, governments, which tend to own large shares in banks, employees, and society at large. So in a way, for banks, it's been for quite a while that we report on the ESG matters. When it comes to the shipping industry and the financiers who finance the shipping industry, contrary to Europe, I think there's still a sort of tiering market as to how banks are focused on ESG topics. And I think geographically, if you look towards the East in Asia, that may not be a theme on the top of the agenda. Certainly for all European banks, my impression is that this is at the core of their strategies, at least for D&B. If I speak for myself, this is part of our DNA, and it's at the same level as the credit risk and the compliance risk. So for every credit decision, every decision that we take, there is an element of assessing the ESG risk. So it's fundamental. We are a founding member of the Poseidon Principles. So since 2019, we have been reporting our bank's ship finance portfolio emission. As it was mentioned in the previous panel, it's not a stick situation. It's more trying to assess how the overall industry is developing and how, as a bank, we can assist our clients to find the right path to decarbonize with the technology available to them, and at the pace that other stakeholders, and I think we'll discuss that a bit later, when it comes to alternative technologies and alternative fuels, whenever these new means are available to our clients, how can that accelerate the decarbonization of shipping? So we take a very pragmatic view, but from a banking perspective, really, ESG reporting is extremely important. We are due to report on the bank's overall ESG risk. The regulators in the EU expect us to also analyze any climate-related environmental risk linked to our activities. So it's difficult to do without, to be honest. It's a necessity.
Thank you, Hugues. I jump over to Jeff now. What he would think about what's necessities for ESG and ESG reporting.
First of all, I'm also here for Sea Cargo Charter, so that I want to add. I actually misread the question because I thought it was talking about the requirements for ESG in shipping. And if you talk about what is required to have a proper ESG in shipping, I think the buzzword here is transparency, obviously, and standardization. And that's what Sea Cargo Charter stands for. But I want to kind of make a short point on standardization, because if we talk about standardization, we talk about the metric. And I'm not going to start a discussion here about CII. But what I want to really raise here or bring to the room is that it has to be a fair metric. And I think most of you, especially on the shipowner community, but also on the charter side, I can tell you it's all about having a fair metric. And I think what I want to say about ESG is really that if you make it too compact or just too limited on shipping only, or on the ship owner only for that perspective, or on the charter only, that's a misconception. That's wrong. That's not fair. So ESG, if you apply ESG properly to the shipping industry, you need to have a fair metric. And that is not just decarbonization. It's not a ship owner's problem. It's not a charter's problem. It's our problem.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Antonakis, what do you have to say on this subject?
Look, I totally agree with Jeff. You know, there is a misconception about ESG in shipping. We always tend to focus on, or over-focus on decarbonization and leave out the other two very significant parts, which is the social part and the governance part, without which we cannot have the environmental part. Now, we tend to have a very good standard listed at least companies for governance issues. You tend to have a very good commensurate, tries around transparency, but there is always a lack in comparability, and Jeff literally touched upon that on standardization. So the first and foremost necessity is to have a level playground here. And by saying that, we mean that IMO should step in and set the level straight and come up with a regulation that applies globally, instead of leaving the regulatory tools and the standardization and the comparability of data to the industry, either to third-party assurance providers or, usually in our negotiation we don't have the upper hand as ship owners, usually our charters do. So it's to their benefit to establish, certain data that might affect their negotiation hand, or our bankers. And I feel very squeezed here between those parties. But I will say this, and don't take much of the time. We need IMO to step in, make a regulatory change, and probably impose a global regulation around standardization and comparability of data around the decarbonization of shipping. And that will help, both financiers not imposing their own rules, like Poseidon rules, not our charters to impose their own rules, like whatever works in any given time in the market. And for us also, it will make it easier to comply with setting goals that are long-term in nature, and not that, not having a short-term financial feasibility always overlying over our heads. Because now the market might be good, and things like this panel might come up, but I am sure when the going gets tough, the ESG won't be on the top of the agenda. It will be at the very bottom. So as soon as we have, a global standard, as soon as we have set of standards and comparability and transparency, then we will be able to make it for the whole industry to take the next step together. Collaboration is the key here, as you understand, and not one party should have a set of standards that are good for its own kind of business, but it should be a collaborative work.
Thank you, Thanasis. Katerina, would you have anything to comment on this?
Yep. Just to note that, sorry, thanks so much. Just to note that based on what all of here, all of the participants refer to, the main important part is that the standardization from the IMO will come actually by implementing global standards, like for example the CSRD part, due to the fact that along with the new regulations that the EU is trying actually to implement, the global, let's say, America is trying also to follow them in order to ensure the standardization in the reporting. And with regards to the specific industry standards, just to say that there is an effort that will be actually on after 2 years, it is expected of the European Union, to prepare specific standards, industry standards, in order to ensure that their applicability will be actually tailor-made based on the needs and the challenges that each industry faces. So we are expecting through the CSRD and through the new ESRS, let's say, regulation, that a new way of reporting will be, let's say, ready after 1 or 2 years, aligned with the IMO, in order to ensure that all of the challenges of the shipping industry are actually addressed, and is expected to be seen in order to ensure that everyone on the shipping sector is actually following the same path with regards to this standardization of the reporting part.
Thank you. No, good answers all. I think just to summarize that question, really it was about having an understanding of the perspective that it's more than just one. It's about having standardization, right? It's about the importance of it from finance and how it runs deep, and then it's about how these regulations are going to come about. So thank you all. My next question is focused about the tangible benefits, right? And what are, as just heard, kind of what we need to get there. Once ESG is already in place, but as we get further along, what are some of the tangible benefits that we'll get in the industry? And I'll start with Thanasis, if you don't mind going first on this one.
Yeah. For us at Salvage, the tangible benefits are very straightforward. We have our financiers, certain of our financiers on my right, so they can attest to that. Meaning that financial benefits are obvious. Those companies that have a strong ESG imperative embedded in their financial strategy and the overall strategy of the company have easier access to capital. So they can attract more easily investors. We can access the capital markets much more easily when we focus on an ESG strategy that is aligned with our overall strategy. And that is jargon, but let me put it in an actual example. In the last couple of years, we have ordered and we have been taking delivery of phase 3 vessels. Now we have in total, in aggregate, ordered 16 of those vessels, and we have taken delivery already for 9 of those. So in order to have this placed and ordered, we need money. So we need financiers behind us to back up and take those risks along with us. And that cannot be done unless you have a clear understanding of your long-term ESG objectives and goals. So, of course, you need to charter those vessels, and you need to charter them at the commensurate revenue to the expense and the capex that we have made. So, Jeff. So this, always come in tandem with the revenue that we expect to take. So the actual benefits of having your ESG strategy embedded in your competitive strategy and the overall strategy of the company is actually to have a plan, a long-term strategy, and not just ordering whatever is out there or taking large capital expenditures without the backing of your financiers without the backing of your investors. And what used to be nice to have a couple of years ago, or 3 or 5 years ago, now it's become a necessity. So you do need a financial license to operate that comes along with the ESG planning. You do need a social license to operate and a governance license to operate. And all these come along and combined in your ESG strategy. If this is clearly articulated in your company's DNA, as we in Cyprus have done, then you can have tangible benefits. Yeah. So if it is done on an ad hoc basis, then we don't have the benefits that you expect to have.
Perfect, thank you, Thanasis. Since you mentioned his name, I'll go to Jeff next.
Besides the answer to this question, I've got a lot to say to Thanasis now, but anyway. I can do that in public or I can do that later, but let me, first of all, benefit of ESG, I think if I speak for ourselves, for our company, what it did to us, and maybe for some of you in the public too, is that it made us self-reflect. Because what we thought was the best way to do business, we are going to revise, review our contracts, for instance, review the operational efficiency. By the way, operational efficiency, let's not talk about, I don't want to talk about future fuels, but look at how we can improve our business as it is today and already gain a lot of emission saving. I come from the emission saving point of view. So that is what I think ESG is doing to us, is doing to the world, is doing to our industry. Look at how the relationship between ship owners and charters is changing. Before, and I'm in this business for more than 30 years, and what I'm seeing today in the last couple of years, the relationship between owners and charters is really changing, and Patrick and I and our team, we are really investing in this. So that is what ESG, I think, is a tangible change for us. But if you allow me, I want to compliment Thanasis on his vision. Maybe he didn't know that, but he has a lot of vision. In his previous answer, he was talking about standardization. You were talking about transparency, and I think you agree with me about the metric. And I'm very excited that I'm able to kind of repeat here a press release. Sea Cargo Charter Global Maritime Forum did in December last year. Is that we're going to make the Sea Cargo Charter open for ship owners as of April this year. So Thanasis, if you like, I would love you to join the Sea Cargo Charter, because then at least we have, I think the only logical way is we make a joint metric and not a charter's view on things, but a joint view on things. So you're most welcome, Thanasis, and others, and all the other owners, by the way.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That was an interesting proposal. Good dialogue for sure. Katerina, would you have anything further to say on the benefits of ESG?
Yep. Actually, one of the main purposes with regards to the ESG is to create the baseline of a new way of, let's say, of creating a new purpose. It's a cultural change. It's a new way of creating synergies. It's a new way of, going together against the specific objective, but having all of us on board. So all the stakeholders, as we have already in discussions with Jeff and Thanasis and Hugues, all the stakeholders need to cooperate, and of course, even in the same industry, in the same, let's say, company, there are a lot of things that actually need to align in order to ensure that this will be the next day, which is a common target, even if it's, to decrease, let's say, the CO2 emissions, even to ensure that we will have a new, let's say, technology which automates the next day and creates fully rerouting in using only one app, for example, which will be also a new, let's say, sustainable product for the next day and target operating model for the company, a new opportunity. And of course, this is also an opportunity to ensure that we redesign the processes and the way that we actually offer this to ensure that cost is limited and go further to a new transformation and to a new digital transformation and re-engineering of the way that we operate today.
Thank you, Katerina, and over to you, Hugues.
I'll be very brief. I think Thanasis said it very well from the banking perspective. What we've been advocating our clients to do for many years now is to make sure they can access different sources of capital. And I think when it comes to accessing the European bank market, which historically has been the main provider of finance for the shipping industry, you need to have an ESG strategy in place. So, you get access to volumes and certainly also have a pricing incentive. We talk about sustainability-linked loans, which give 5-10 basis points discount, which is not really a game changer. But I think the way to look at it is if you don't have an ESG policy, ESG targets, you don't have access potentially to these pockets of capital, which today are probably the most competitive out there. So I'm just saying you could still access capital, but not at the same price and maybe not at the same volumes.
Yeah, thank you. And just quickly again to summarize, what I heard from that was from Thanasis, planning. Really the ESG adds a lot of planning, helps you plan, gets more access to capital. From Jeff, it's self-reflection or company reflection and really seeing what you're doing and how you're doing business. And Katerina, you're more about the regulation and how the standards are going to come up. So thank you for that. So time is running. I'm going to jump over the challenges question that I was looking at and focus on the regulation because we've kind of already touched on that one. And as Katerina has mentioned in her presentation, coming actually into force this year, you have EU CSRD for the larger companies, and then they have to start their processes now, and the reporting is due next year. And then again, for a bit smaller companies, you have to start again from 1 January 2025 with reporting in 26. And my question is EU CSRD, is it fit for purpose? Is it the right regulation that our industry needs? And if it's not, or where should this regulation be developed? And Thanasis, you already kind of touched on that. Maybe I'll hand it over to you first for that.
Thank you, Ezekiel. It is fit for purpose, yes. Fit for 35 is fit for purpose as long as it is used in the right way, meaning that the implementation of the regulation has to be very clear. So the applicability, first of all, needs to be very heavily, look into it. And each case for each company is very, very different. And as long as you, and to the extent that you will use it as a tool, not as a compliance exercise, but as an opportunity, business opportunity to extend your strategy, then it will make sense. If you use it as a bureaucratic only exercise, a compliance exercise, then it won't work. You need to have, as Jeff said, he referenced the Sea Cargo Charter that relates to cargo sustainability. A little bit earlier, Hugues mentioned the Poseidon principles that touch upon a lot of things, and each regulation has its own, underlying metrics and KPIs. But in order to become effective, we have to build confidence. And in order for that to be achieved, again, I will come to what I've said earlier, you need a global overlying regulation. And currently we have, as Katerina literally put up a slide, we have 35 different regulations for multiple jurisdictions, all overlying. And so it has to be a clear level here, or else you will find ourselves in a position chasing behind the regulation and not actually having a clear strategy. And of course, it isn't only listed companies with huge sizes. There are smaller owners out there where the burden of compliance will be exorbitant, and it will be very, very difficult for them to continue and operate in a jurisdiction, or they will try to take advantage of an arbitrage of regulations in other jurisdictions. So it will be fit for purpose as long as you have a clear understanding of where you want to go as a business, and use it to your benefit rather than a compliance exercise.
Thank you, Thanasis. In the sake of time, I'm just going to open it to the panel. Anybody else? Katerina, would you any comment on the regulation?
No, just to note that the regulation is actually it actually requires 4 basic things: to define the strategy with regards to the sustainability journey that each company is actually making, to define how the governance part, so the processes that it actually has in place in order to ensure that this environment is safe, to define the KPIs, which means to set objectives and go for it, clear objectives, KPIs, in order to ensure that something has a meaning, to ensure improvement. That is why it requires specific KPIs to achieve. And fourth, to actually ensure and identify risks and opportunities and quantify these opportunities, which will actually bring new, let's say, opportunities for the company, and of course new ways of revenue. Just to define what is this regulation about. So just to come in the beginning, like Jeff, I think has mentioned it in this, when we started, this is a holistic approach. So I don't know if the regulation will be, something that will solve the problem. To say the truth, that regulation does not always solve the problem. It's actually a checklist in the beginning. But to say the truth, the most important part to keep from is that we need a holistic approach to all these models that we have defined here, in order to ensure that the next day will be viable and will give value actually to the shipowners on the actions that they perform.
Great, thank you, Katerina. And as you can see, we're out of time now. I did have one last question, and that was change. And that was, I was going to ask the panel if they thought that this ESG reporting was going to actually drive change in the industry. And I think from what we've heard here today, and in the sake of time, that I think we can all agree that it is going to drive change. And it already is starting to change the approach that we take as companies. So with that, I'd just like to thank the panel, thank Capital Link for the opportunity today. And I hand it over to Drew.
Thank you. Katerina and the panel, without wanting to be intrusive, one minor comment, if I mention from any one of you. It's a very intriguing topic. In fact, quite frankly, the more I hear about it, the more ignorant I find myself with this approach, which I'm not really familiar with. One thing I'd like to ask is that what's your view on the greenwashing? I haven't heard anybody mention that. The greenwashing is a very difficult situation which we're facing. We've had this, the Paris Agreement 2015, where all this scenario started about trying to improve our environment. But I'd like a few comments either from you or one of your panelists about greenwashing. Thank you.
I could answer on behalf of the banks. I think this is absolutely on the top of the agenda. I think, for example, I remember when the first sort of green loans in shipping were raised, put in place, they were qualified as green. And I think looking back now, they were not green, right? They were still brown financings. And I think the banks have seen that they have to be extremely cautious. Banks have been fined, actually, not necessarily to their activities linked to shipping, but all other activities when they have been deemed to greenwash representation of their investments. So this is extremely high on the agenda, and I think that's why you might see banks getting more and more demanding on their ESG-related terms for facility agreements. by fear of being taxed to be greenwashed down the line. Particularly for European banks, I think banks elsewhere in the world might be different. So I agree with you, it's really high on the agenda.
Thank you for responding that way, because I mean personally, I've always been concerned about it, because let's face it, the whole shipping industry is going through a whole can of worms, massive difficulties in compliance, and they're fighting tooth and nail. So when you have this situation of this element of hypocrisy, which exists, and it's very predominant in the market, I think it's something which is so heartbreaking, because there's a certain amount of code of ethics which prevails in the shipping business, and it's not really correct, as far as I'm concerned, to have a situation of having so many people spend an infinite amount of money, effort, and sacrifice to find this process being so prevalent. I'm sorry for saying that. Thank you.
If I could may add here, on behalf of the owners, that's why we mentioned at the start that we've got to have an ESG strategy rather than ticking the boxes, because there is a certain liability that comes up associated with what you will be disclosing in the future, and disclosing in your 20F, in your annual reports, and in your sustainability reports. So there are a whole industry of greenwashing lawsuits out there waiting, and I see my friend Stephen back there as an insurer already laughing. But there is a certain point here to make.
Sure. Jeff, do you have something? You look like you have something.
Yeah, I just wanted to, and I hope I expressed myself right here, because we should also not be paranoia about greenwashing. What I try to say here is that, of course, greenwashing is bad, period, if we talk about the pure greenwashing. But I encounter sometimes people who put a label of greenwashing on companies making small efforts, making small gains. And in the previous panel I heard the word baby steps. And that's what this industry has to do. We should be realistic about our goals. They're not always realistic, we all know that. It's a target, it's a goal. But what I want to oppose here a little bit is that let's not be paranoia. Don't call small efforts like doing 100 tons of biofuel on a vessel is maybe a small step, but it is a step. And that should not be, and if you want to market that you're doing that, that's not greenwashing. So that's what I want to add to the discussion.
Thank you, everybody, very much. We're definitely out of time now. Great discussion. It's going to be just to get the afternoon started. Thank you.